About 3 years ago, my 38-year-old wife and I, together with our 2 children, a preteen and a little younger, relocated to a new neighborhood. Our kids instantly became friends with the preteen and tween children of her neighbors across the street. We used to spend time with the parents as well, and my wife and the mother grew close. Although we never became as close as my wife and the mother, my dad and I got along just fine. Regretfully, the mother filed for divorce approximately a year ago after the parents got separated. The father apparently had an affair. Before they were married, the father owned the house, so the mother moved out. She went with the children. My spouse claims that although the father requested and was given shared custody of the children, the mother attempted to obtain sole custody. The children stay with their mother the remainder of the time, and he gets to see them 3 weekends a month. The father and I aren't close enough for me to feel comfortable asking serious questions about the affair, so we've only had a few fleeting conversations about the whole thing. He clearly feels a great deal of shame about the affair. The kids still play together when they get the chance, but my wife would make it a point to make sure our kids extended an invitation to them to come over. In addition, my wife was questioning the neighbor kids about their dad in a strange and, to be honest, somewhat intrusive way. She wanted to know if he entertained friends while they were there, what kind of food he fed them, what kind of rules he had at home, if the kids felt safe there, and other things. During their dinner visit this past weekend, my wife asked the children if they preferred spending time with their mother or father. I interrupted the children before they could respond, bringing up the topic of watching a movie after supper. I asked my wife what the heck all the questions were about while we were cleaning up afterwards. She informed me that her buddy is still attempting to obtain sole custody of their children and requested my wife to watch for any evidence that could be used to strengthen the father's case. It stunned me. I told her to keep her mouth shut because that was none of our business. I informed her that it appeared her friend was still angry about the affair and was using that resentment as an excuse to remove the children from their father. I informed her that neither of us had ever seen anything to suggest that. This man was a bad father, certainly, he was a bad husband because of his affair, but it says nothing about how good and loving a father he may be. I informed her that I thought what her buddy had asked her to do was disgusting and that I strongly disagreed with her for agreeing to do it. She should mind her own business, I told her. She claimed that she is only trying to watch out for a friend and make sure the kids are placed in the best possible circumstances. I corrected her, telling her that it was not our place to be essentially spying on our neighbor and that she was wrong to ask the questions she did. I don't think she's entirely justified, but she does. Not to be the idiot, but you should point out to your wife that she is alienating the parents by trying to assist her friend in removing the children from their father. The kids will be honest in their answers about the chats and questions, so eventually the dad will find it out. In a custody hearing, everything your wife learns and tells a friend will be revealed. It is possible that your spouse may be asked to attest that it was she who made the inquiries and got the data. The father may be able to sue your wife, and her friend may lose custody or serve time in custody as a result of parental alienation. When the father finds out what your wife is doing, he won't let the kids be near her, so your kids will be sad when they lose their friends. This means that your wife's mission will have a bad effect on her family. Additionally, if the father chooses to sue your wife, you might have to pay legal fees. You will still be responsible for paying for your wife's legal representation even if he loses. There are major implications, but your wife doesn't think there are any for her, you, or your kids. Your wife is so committed to supporting her friend that she is prepared to put her own family's safety in danger to do so. She requires counseling. You don't want to cause the court any trouble here. Should I discover that someone had set out to have my children taken away and was actively pursuing this goal, I would use all legal measures to inflict as much suffering and consequences as I possibly could on them. Even though I'm usually very gentle, I would screw that person's ass as much as I could in court, the community, at work, you name it. That's the boundary you stay inside. I'm sure it's entertaining to play spy and be all dramatic, but Opie's wife is playing with fire here. Things might grow much nastier than I think she's thinking of. It is improper for your wife to use the children as pawns in a divorce, and she is doing it on behalf of her friend. How would she feel if your children were the ones to receive those questions? As much as I hate to say it because I loathe people who have affairs, your wife and his ex-wife need to end this bullshit as soon as possible if the dad is not aggressive, which it sounds like he is not.
Hello, female, 30. I'm a finicky eater.
Preface: part of my pickiness stems from the fact that I was diagnosed with certain sensory difficulties related to eating when I was younger and that it was impossible to make me eat a lot of food. As I grew older, things improved and I was able to prepare nutritious meals that I enjoyed for myself.
All things considered, I dislike hefty, fattening dishes. I was fortunate to land a high-paying job at the age of 20.
I detest cooking, therefore I'd made the decision to try a ready meal delivery service instead of cooking because many of them are healthy and provide me an option. I married 23-year-old Pete when I was 21. Even though purchasing prepared meals was quicker and less expensive, Pete insisted on cooking everything himself and forced me to try new cuisines. I might have used that time to pursue my profession or other interests. But I never liked anything he made since I thought it tasted terrible and I would always end myself sick to my stomach afterwards. My prickly nature was essentially a contributing factor in our 3-year divorce.
Let's get back to the present. I went to a business dinner last week with my boss and the owner and assistant of the company that was interested in becoming our partners. I was shocked to learn that Pete was the assistant because he had previously declared he would never work in my line of business. Pete was making snide remarks to his employer and mine right before the dinner about how finicky I was about what I ate and how that would lead to our divorce. To his astonishment, though, I ordered a few items that I would normally find repulsive and would eat without any issues. Pete lost his mind and began to ask me improper questions, almost calling me names, until I finally had enough. I told his boss that every dish he made me sick, which was why I was so picky with him, to which he chuckled, and we continued with the dinner. Pete texted me a lot the following day, calling me a fool for what I had said and claiming that his supervisors had now declined to attend the business dinner he was hosting, which was hurting his career. Pete's boss probably canceled on him because he's a terrible dinner companion, not because of your silly comment. Pete's putting it on you because he doesn't want to own up to his own flaws. I see a pattern here.
Yep, I'm guessing when his boss saw his behavior, he would have taken any excuse not to spend more time with him than necessary.
Pete was asking you a bunch of inappropriate questions in front of your boss. That's embarrassing.
Additionally, it's totally your choice what you want to eat. Typical men in business behavior. My 32-year-old fiancé and I have been together for 15 years. We have 3 children, Ashley, a female teen, Nick, a male tween, and Carter, a male toddler. After I became pregnant shortly after we graduated from high school, many of our plans changed. We couldn't go to college because we wouldn't be able to make it and be parents at the same time. He got a good job, and I kept my old job in retail until I was physically unable to do it.
To accumulate more money, we were eventually able to rent a small house. However, we didn't get married because I didn't want to walk down the aisle pregnant. Money was a major factor as well. We also didn't want people to rumor that we married only because I was pregnant. Finally, time passed. My fiancé, who was 29 years old, started dating my sister-in-law, Laura, who was 27. Initially, we got along well, but after a year or so of dating, we had a fight that made the whole family dislike her. She told me her biggest fear was becoming a single mother and having children immediately after high school. I felt horrible and told her some hurtful things, but I never would have told her that if she had kept her mouth shut. Later, when we were having dinner at my in-laws' house, my fiancé's parents became extremely irate with her as well and demanded that she apologize and leave, which she did. The relationship between my brother-in-law and the family has improved, and his children get along well with everyone. My fiancé and I are currently engaged. Last week, we sent out invitations, but we decided not to include our sister-in-law. We sent invitations to brother-in-law and his children, but not to her.
In response, brother-in-law called my husband to ask why his wife's name wasn't on the invitation.
When he explained, he became irate, telling us that we can't keep
pretending that his wife doesn't exist because that would be unfair and that we have already caused her to miss numerous family gatherings out of spite. My spouse told him that it was our wedding, and that we could invite anyone we chose. We wanted people who would celebrate our love with us, not people who would think the same negative things about us as his wife does. Brother-in-law is now threatening not to come to the wedding, which has upset my in-laws because he also doesn't want to send the kids with them so at least they can come.
He said that if we don't consider his wife family, we shouldn't consider them family either, and said that because of me, sister-in-law doesn't feel part of the family and cries all the time.
My husband's sister, 25, told us that we needed to let this go because it's been a decade since my argument with her and she was only a teenager who said dumb stuff.
You are the idiot. This is petty as all heck.
You're holding a grudge over something she said when she was a teenager.
Are you sure you're mature enough to be married? LOL. The sister-in-law is right. Who wants to end up with a vindictive, mean, and petty high school graduate?
Laura was a teen when she started dating Josh, so like 17 when she said her greatest fear would be ending up pregnant an unmarried teen right out of high school, which obviously she should never have said to you.
But it is a reasonable stance,
and again, she was a teenager, and she apologized, and this was over a decade ago. You totally glanced over the hurtful stuff you said back to her, but I'm sure it was ugly too, and you're still holding a grudge and ruining the family. I feel bad for Laura, and I'm proud of Josh for standing up for his wife. However, I also think it's crazy that people think it's cool to be so incredibly rude and hurtful as to exclude her from a family wedding and then just expect her to happily send her kids along.
LOL.
No, that's not how that works. I 100% told my older cousin while she was pregnant that I was terrified to be like her, aka pregnant when I left high school. I'll readily admit today that at 28, I'd still be terrified to be pregnant.
It's not for me. Was my comment insensitive?
Sure.
Did she call me out for my wording?
Probably.
It was a while ago if she did.
I know I apologized though, and she sure as crap didn't hold it against me for over a decade.
This lady needs some damn therapy ASAP. My family had steak tonight for dinner. A large piece of
pure fat was on one of the steaks, which I cut off to throw away. My daughter, a teen, told me not to throw it out and that she wanted to eat it. I cut off a small slice from the fat and gave it to her, but she insisted I give her the whole thing. It was a huge piece of fat, which would be super unhealthy to eat. I told her no, she didn't need a slice of fat half the size of her entire steak, and said that would be ridiculous. She got upset that I forced her to waste food. She wanted part of my responsibility as a parent is to keep my children, at least relatively healthy, and not feed them pure beef fat just because they want it.
Am I the idiot for throwing it away?
Edit to clarify, it was on my plate. I didn't take it from hers.
My daughter is overweight. She's gaining weight and has been.
Her diet isn't healthy because she often buys herself snacks and fast food with her own money.
Not the idiot. It's not wasted when it's obviously inedible. Sure, you can swallow everything on your plate, including bones. What's the point though?
Furthermore, you're not obligated to give anything on your plate to somebody else.
It's your food, you can do whatever with it. However, do you think she's deliberately gaining weight, or is the weight gain a consequence of her poor eating habits?
I was wondering aloud if it was a subconscious coping mechanism for something. Nor can I lie, crispy fried steak or pork chop fat is yummy, but it's absolutely ridiculous to eat a giant piece of fat.
You're right on that, and she's wrong.
She's still a kid, so you can veto some of her food choices. It'd be irresponsible if you let her eat whatever she wants all the time without caring about her health. If you look at the keto forums, you will see that many people eat high-fat foods without ill health effects when combined with non-processed foods and vegetables. If you're worried about your daughter's health, work with her to cut out the junk food.
You are the idiot.
Of all the things that would make your daughter fat, eating a bit of animal fat would be the least of the causes. The processed high-carb snacks and fast food your daughter eats are doing far more metabolic damage than fat from regular meat ever could. I'm sure that eating one piece of delicious fat isn't the huge deal you make it out to be, but you are the idiot here. If you continue to police a diet like this, you are going to give this child a bad relationship with food.
There are so many ways to keep your
child healthy, and a balanced diet is one of them.
100% team daughter here. I am the eldest of 3 children, with 2 younger brothers.
I adore my mother, but she is very controlling and likes to meddle. Fortunately, she doesn't do this to me because, 1, I joined the military almost immediately after turning 18, and I haven't lived at home or in the area around my hometown since.
2. I live 4,000 kilometers away on the other side of the country, and 3. I am gay, so my mother doesn't have a daughter-in-law to push around. I married my husband in 2006. Since we both served in the military, our wedding was conducted in a military facility, so there was no need for my mother to handle the planning. My husband and I see my family only once a year, and we always stay in a hotel instead of at my parents' house. My brother's relationship with mom is different. Both of them have no boundaries with her. They allow her to walk all over them, as well as their wives and girlfriends. Mom has keys to their homes and insists that they live as close to her and dad as possible. My brothers have previously been married, one of them divorced and the other remarried. Mom took charge of the wedding preparations and meddled in every aspect of their lives, including raising my nieces and nephews. My other brother was engaged to be married again, but the relationship ended before the wedding. Mom's control and meddling contributed to both of my brother's divorces and to the breakup of my brother's engagement. My brother, who is divorced and remarried, complained about mom's interference with me. The last 3 times we talked, my brothers complained about that, but it was almost the only thing he talked about. After the 3rd time, I told him he only had himself to blame, and that led to a fight because he thought I didn't understand. He got our other brother involved, and he agrees with him. My brother-in-law is against me. My brothers are adults with their own money. They're not dependent on my parents for employment or financial stuff. There's nothing stopping them from telling mom to back off and drawing up some boundaries. They only have themselves to blame, even if they try to fight me on that. What I said led to a fight, but I think I'm right and not the idiot here. She insists they live in the same neighborhood as her and dad. This made me snort my drink right out my nose onto my mother's new leather couch. Sweet Jesus on a pogo stick, not a chance. You are right, they allow her to meddle and never put any boundaries in place. They only got themselves to blame here. I assume they're in their 30s, so past the age when they need mommy to wipe their butt. I love my mom, and generally get along great with her, but I still had to pass on an otherwise amazing house because it was just up the street from her, and I knew she wouldn't be able to resist just dropping by. Boundaries are great. Both of them are divorced. I'm so surprised to read this. So surprised. Once again, I'm using all this available on earth at this moment. When you can't cut your ties to mom or dad to this degree, you don't deserve a partnership because you have nothing of yourself to offer. It's just normal dad's opinions, mom or dad's rules, mom or dad's life. OP, you are not the idiot. You didn't insult them or swear at them. You spoke truth to power. They allowed their mom to take over their lives and ruin their marriages.